The party told you to reject the evidence of your ears and eyes.
Yeah.
The final, most essential command. Thank God that doesn't happen now in 2026.
Of course not.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles, you bastard. My name's John. His name's Andy. I saw a rainbow stretched across the ocean, crashed the Big Apple. So I took a bite, found a taste I like, but she bit me back. More on that later. But first, we have tracks listened to, selected by Andy. What have you got for all the good folks and me today?
Well, considering our first go round with Sublime went so well earlier this in January. I guess this episode will probably air in February. But yeah, we did that about a month ago and it went over so well that I figured we could go back to the well. And I'd like you to check out another song by them. This one is called April 29th, 1992, and parenthetically Miami. So interested to hear what you have to say about this song after you've already given the one a go. Please let us know what your second experience is like when you go off and give this one a listen.
I don't know if you can, but can you get an owner for ONS? That's O-N-S Junior Market. The address is 1934 East Anaheim. All the windows are busted out, and it's like a free-for-all here, and the owner should maybe come down here and see if he can secure his business if he wants to.
April 26, 1992. There was a riot on the streets. Tell me, where were you?
Pretty sure because I wrote it down. April 29th, 1992. You said the 26th. I'm going to listen to that again. Nice start. It's sort of, I don't know if it's a police dispatch radio or scanner or whatever clip, but kind of reminds me of Cypress Hill Pigs. But that has a very different feel, that song, I'm guessing. Maybe not. But yeah, so you get this sort of Dwayne Eddy twangy guitar, and then some like brass coming in that's sort of aping it same way. It's a nice reverb on it as well. It's very sort of chilled beat coming in, and then your man starts singing. What date did he say?
I don't know if you can, but can you get an owner for ONS? That's O-N-S Junior Market. The address is 1934 East Anaheim. All the windows are busted out, and it's like a free-for-all here, and the owner should maybe come down here and see if he can secure his business if he wants to.
April 26, 1992. There was.
Yeah, he said April 26th, 1992. There's some nice scratching going on underneath. I take it this is to do with the LA riots, Rodney King, etc.
A riot on the streets. Tell me, where were you? You were sitting home watching your TV while I was participating in some anarchy. First spot we hit, it was my liquor store. I finally got all that alcohol I can't afford. With red lights flashing, time to retire, and then we turned that liquor store into a structure fire. Next stop we hit, it was the music shop. It only took one rip to make that window drop. Finally we got our own PA. Where do you think I got this guitar that you're hearing today? Hey!
Call fire and tell them to respond to the mobile station now in Anaheim. It's flaming up good.
For Alamitos Station Accounting.
When we returned to
I like those piano chords just then. Sound very nice. So this, I guess, the first verse. So yeah, it is the riots. Must be LA riots 92. Must be. It's kind of like a gentle stroll, a sort of alternative version of Supermarket Sweep from a looter's point of view. We'll get some liquor, cops arriving, so I'll set that alight. Go and get some PA system and a guitar as well. Yeah, interesting. See how it goes.
The pad to unload everything. It dawned on me that I need new home furnishings. So once again we filled the van until it was full. Since that day my living room's been much more comfortable. Cause everybody in the hood has added up to here. It's getting hotter and hotter and harder each and every year. Some kids went in a store with their mother. I saw her when she came out, she was getting some peppers. They said it was for the black man, they said it was for the Mexican, and not for the white man. But if you look at the street, it wasn't about Rodney King. Not this fucked up situation and these fucked up police. It's about coming up and staying on top and screaming 187 on a motherfucking cop. It's not in the paper, it's on the wall. National Guard, smoke from all around.
Units be advised have been 211 to arrest now at 938 Temple, 938 Temple, 30 subjects.
Really strong Cypress Hill vibes then. Honestly, it's got the date 92. I don't know which to record it, but Cypress Hill was 91. I wonder if it had some sort of influence on them. So yeah, the second verse is a little bit more sort of not so happy-go-lucky. I know it's like filling up his van and home furnishings, but then it turns into more of an insight. So it's not really about Rodney King. I don't know enough to comment on that, but this is obviously his point of view. I know that you can only push people so far before they'll push back. Yeah. Interesting. And then this bit at the end where he's sort of almost he's shouting National Guard and about the smoke. Yeah, I don't know if that's ringing any bells. Yeah, crazy stuff.
Man trying to get inside the CP's house. 6 are start trying to kill them.
Cause I'm alive, I'ma live illegal.
That was interesting there. So you've got this steady, when you've got a ska or a reggae beat or whatever, it's fairly sort of chilled and relaxed. And just there we get this very short, punchy sax. And it really reminded me of British ska. It just reminded me actually of one song in particular, Mirror in the Bathroom, by The Beat, who had to change their name to The English Beat. But yeah, that sort of thing definitely sort of sounded like a two-tone ska. It was nice to hear. Just whiz it back 10, 15, 20 seconds.
Trying to kill them.
Cause I'm alive, I'ma live illegal.
Love those piano chords.
Let it burn, wanna let it burn, wanna let it burn, wanna let it burn. Riots on the streets of Miami, whoa, riots on the streets of Chicago, on the streets of Long Beach, and San Francisco, riots on the streets of Kansas City, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Cleveland, Ohio, Mountain Valley, Paramount, Victorville, Eugene, Oregon, Eureka, California, Esperion, San Barbara, Phoenix, Arizona, San Diego, Lakeland, Florida, let it burn, let it burn.
Any units that says Frank 74, Willow and Caspian, structure fire, and numerous subjects looting.
F-15 to get rid of this looter.
Yeah, interesting song. Musically, it was pretty simple. Really enjoyable though. It's great sound. It's really nice, that blend, which was happening a bit in the 90s, of the sort of reggae, ska-y, hip-hop sort of beats. Yeah, really nice. I should really have checked out Sublime a lot earlier, shouldn't I? But yeah, the content of this song's really interesting as well. I don't know if I've my take in it, but that was just the information fed to us over here as a limey watching on from across the pond. Obviously, this song is not a documentary. It's his take. He may not even been on the streets then. I do know that I have experienced a riot firsthand, and it's not all reggae beats. It was scary as fuck. There were people bleeding and screaming all over the place, and it wasn't great at all. So yeah, I think back when I was 20, I've sung Let It Burn, Let It All Burn, but you kind of get a wider perspective as you get older. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what Andy says about this and the sort of stuff behind it, more information. Whether it's really there or not, if it's just his take on it. I wrote this, his name. But yeah, I'm really keen to find out a bit more about this. So let's go back and chop it with Andy.
All right, so you are back from Miami. It is not April 29th or 26th, 1992, but please tell us what you made of this, John.
Just by coincidence, the date of this title, I was on the cusp of becoming 23 years old. 22 years old, sorry, 22 years old. So yeah, long time ago.
How about it?
Yeah, so it starts the song with a little clip from, I think, probably just Police Dispatch radio or something. I get the figuring, I don't know where Anaheim is, but I've heard of it. So I get the figuring by the date that this is to do with the LA riots following the acquittal of the cops that beat up Rodney King. It just shows you that with ingrained privilege, supported by a sycophantic media, you can gaslight anything. It reminded me of, and these quotes have come up recently. The party told you to reject the evidence of your ears and eyes.
Yeah.
The final, most essential command. Thank God that doesn't happen now in 2026.
Of course not.
Anyway, it also made me think, in more happier terms, of Cypress Hill opening from their debut album, Pigs, which is a very different approach as a song, but it has that thing at the start. One male Hispanic and one possible black. Yeah, well, and it just made me grin just thinking about that. So there you go. We get this twangy guitar with a lot of reverb, opens proceedings, followed by some brass which kind of mimics the same notes, all with some sort of radical scratching underneath. So I had to check and pull it back, but the first line he sings is a different date to the title. He says April 26th, 1992. I have no idea what the significance of this has to or instead of the title. He does then confirm riots on the streets, so it must be related to those salad days of 92. The narrator says that he is on the streets participating in some anarchy. He then goes on to map out this sort of grand Theft Auto version of Supermarket Sweep, where he hits the liquor stores, and then it is promptly set alight once the 5-0 turn up. Next up, the music store for some equipment upgrade, a PA system no less, and the guitar, which we then have the pleasure of hearing. The music itself throughout the song is actually pretty simple, but it has a really nice blend. You got a sort of ska reggae beat with some hip hop sensibilities as well, and then other little touches here and there. After he mentions the prolonged guitar, we get some more nice Dwayne Eddy. Do you know what? I mean, he doesn't get his props because every time we're mentioning a twangy guitar, the first thing I think of is Dwayne Eddy, and I haven't got any of his stuff, and I've only probably ever heard down, Peter Gunn. That's Dwayne Eddy is the man when it comes to twangy guitars. And we get further dispatch radio snippets or scanners or whatever they are, further strengthening that link with Cypress Hill's Pigs, which I think it's 1991. so it's thereabouts, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
We then just coming out of that, just leading into the next verse, with some really nice piano chords, which underpin it. All too brief, unfortunately, but I guess too much of a good thing. But they sound fantastic. The overall feel of this at this moment is a pleasant stroll through the streets, almost oblivious of the smoke and flames. He mentions. They then start to talk about his soft furnishings, and filling up the whole van. It's a real proper shopping trip. Then he mentions everyone in the hood has had it up to here. And it's getting harder and harder and harder every year, something like that. So we turn the focus away from just, what you're able to get out of this opportunist sort of theme into something else. And then they relate in the next few lines about how a mother and her kids go into a store just to get some Pampers, which then introduces the idea of inequality. It then goes on to say, with some sort of racial references, black man, Mexican man, etc., that the riots weren't about Rodney King, but the overall situation, social and economic, and the role of the police and all of this. The National Guard are mentioned and now in the picture. So the narration has certainly changed from that first verse, one of a opportunistic looter, as I said. Get more dispatch radio clips, more Dwayne Eddy. And we get a touch of brass as well in the same sort of style of the opening, that sort of mimicking the notes. And then we get this extra honking from a sax. And it's really short clip notes. And when you listen to it, I mean, you wouldn't have heard of this, but it really reminds me of British ska music, specifically two-tone. So we're talking this narrow 4-year period, 3-year period. And in particular, one song called Mirror in the Bathroom by The Beat. It's a really good song, but it has that sort of thing to it. Now, interesting, The Beat then had to change their name to The English Beat, because some fuckers over in America have the same name, who we've never heard of before, during, or since. So they're still The Beat to me. Solid. Anyway, really nice to hear that as well. We then get the suggestion of Let It Burn, and then a list of places in the USA. Much like the lists, it reminded me of the lists in Flavor by John Spencer Blues Explosion. We're number 1 in New York City, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, or indeed Panic by the Smiths. Panic on the streets of Carlisle, Dublin, Dundee, Humberside. Not quite the same ring to it, has it? But, and then at the end of all that, obviously the song finishes on this list. So as a onlooking limey from this side of the pond, I do not know why they chose these places or the significance of them, or if the riots and protests spread across America. I only know what was fed to us over here. In the situation from whoever's narrating it is always described as complicated with regards to the riots. There's been several narratives, one of which is implied that the rioters did more damage to the areas where they lived themselves, and these so-called self-inflicted acts undermine any validity to the protests. It is complicated and it is difficult, particularly from someone from a different country looking in on it. I will say this, we had our fair share of riots. I remember as a kid watching the Brixton riots, the Toxteth riots, etc. It was, and it becomes an animal of itself. And you push a snowball down a hill and it becomes this thing. But what usually kicks it off is a feeling of inequality, and usually that you've got nothing else left to lose.
Yeah.
And the police actions in Brixton really did start that. And it was this idea of hopelessness, unemployment, the future for particularly large sections of society was just really grim. And so why not just go to the streets and set fire to stuff and smash it up? So yeah, I can understand that side of things. I don't know. The one thing and again, your viewpoint changes over the years. I do know this. I was caught up in a riot once, on the edges of one. The Poltux riot in Trafalgar Square in March 1990. The local council was very left-leaning council when I was at college, and they put on free buses for people who wanted to protest.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, shit, there's a free bus into London. I'll hop on board. We can go to the rally and then do a bit of shopping afterwards. Funny enough, ironically, that's what a lot of people did. They just didn't pay for it. So yeah, as we were right on the edges because they all got bottlenecked really bad. But we were on the edges of Trafalgar, and I saw mounted police, and I don't know what caused it, and I'm certainly not laying blame or whatever sources, but I know what happened. Mounted police went flying through in front of me, and I saw someone get absolutely mowed down by a horse. I still, to this day, don't understand how people didn't die in that riot. It was fucking manic, and then it was again snowballed. It was absolute mayhem. And we were right on the edge of it. And there were people screaming, running in all directions, blood everywhere as well. So with the riot shields and stuff, people were being employed. We ducked down a few side alleys onto a tube, made it back to the bus, and we got on board. And then looked round, and I think we were the only people out of about 50 on the bus that weren't clutching a television set or a hi-fi system.
Mm-hmm.
As a 20-year-old radical, I would have joined in that singing Let It Burn, but the reality was it was people bleeding and crying and scared and just trying to get home safely. And it didn't ever occur to me to cash in on that situation with a spot of looting. So there you go. But I could have had a much better hi-fi system. But, I'm glad I didn't. So yeah, without being able to know the finer points of the situation and certainly not wanting to make a judgment on this, I really found this song evocative and thought-provoking. Musically, it was simple, but it was a real pleasure to listen to. And I think I said in the reaction that, shame on me for not having checked out Sublime before, but I certainly will do now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you liked it. It seems like you picked up on all the themes and the subject matter being discussed throughout it, and even correlated to some of the other contemporary music coming out at this time and out of the same area. Which, I mean, it's hard if you know a little bit about Cypress Hill or NWA or any of the other stuff, it kind of makes sense. So I'm glad you picked up on that as well. Now, as I alluded to earlier, John and I have already discussed Sublime from a pretty deep dive aspect, as we do with most of our episodes that are devoted to the first track by a band that we ever do, or an artist or what have you. So got into a lot of that material there. I'm going to try to avoid retreading some stuff, though it'll probably be hard to not to some degree, because this song features on that same album, their self-titled one, that really took off and kind of solidified them in 90s American rock fame. So I'll avoid it as best I can. A quick recap of the band, though. We've got Brad Knoll on lead vocals and guitar, Eric Wilson on bass, and Bud Goff on drums. So like I said, like a lot like Doing Time, the album that we did, this track features on the band's self-titled album released July 30th of 1996 by MCA Records. It's their first release following the death of Bradley Knoll and his untimely passing. And it's the final, obviously, studio album by the band to feature him. By the time it came to record their major label debut, Knoll, as we discussed, was in the full throes of a relapse into heroin use and addiction. Sublime was largely the album, when I say this, Sublime was largely recorded at Willie Nelson's Pedernales studio in Austin, Texas, between February and May of 1996. Although he had previously attempted to stay clean, Knoll returned to using heroin more vigorously than ever during this portion of their existence as a band. According to their producer, Paul Leary, on some days, the band would arrive at 9 a.m. with margaritas in one hand and instruments in the other, ready to record. On others, they nearly burned the place down. Knoll was so addled with the drug that he was sent home by Leary before the recording process was completed. There were times where someone had to go into the bathroom to see if Brad was still alive, he remarked. According to Knoll's father, it took his son 3 days to recover, commenting, "It was the worst I'd ever seen him." The album's musical style contains elements of punk rock, reggae, and ska, as well as dancehall, hip hop, and dub music, with tempos ranging wildly. Noel's lyrical subject matter relates to relationships, prostitution, riots, and addiction. And as mentioned in our previous discussion, Noel died due to a heroin overdose in May of '96, just 2 months prior to the band's major album release, which led to obviously the band's dissolution. Eric Weisbard, in a spin column, compared Noel's posthumous success to that of Jonathan Larson, the composer of the Broadway musical Rent, who died the day before the musical's scheduled premiere earlier in the year. Billboard deemed the band's posthumous success a tale of tragic irony. Abby Konowich, vice president of MCA Records, remarked to Trades on the album's timing, "It's so unfortunate that Brad isn't here to see the way his music is being appreciated and accepted by the public. This is a very significant album in a significant time in music, and we're fortunate to have this music, that we're very unfortunate not to have one of the artists around that created it." Eric Wilson, the band's bassist, was more pragmatic about the issue. He was quoted as saying, "We just want the album to do well so that Brad's kid can go to school and so that we can continue to make a living." Now, ironically, as we discussed in the last one, not only would Brad's kid go off to school, but he would then replace his father eventually in the band, and they would certainly go about making an honest living. Bolstered by numerous hit singles, among them What I Got, Santeria, and Wrong Way, the record proved to be enormously successful, despite the band being defunct and thus not able to promote the album through touring. It sold over 5 million copies in the United States by the end of the decade, and it continues to be a popular catalog album. The album was released during the third wave of the ska peak and etched Sublime into a permanent place among the stars of the 1990s. Critical reviews were positive, praising Noel's songwriting ability and the album's musical variety. Sublime has since been listed as one of the most well-regarded albums of the 1990s by Spin and Rolling Stone. Spin included the album on its list of best albums of the decade, opining that it redeemed modern rock radio in the post-grunge era. It deems the album Sublime a tragic contradiction, a confident, clear-headed work by an artist coming into his own, at the same time losing control. So here are the lyrics, and forgive me as they do include some of that radio dispatch from the police. "I don't know if you can, but can you get an order on ONS? That's ONS, Junior Market. The address is 1934 East Anaheim. All windows are busted out, and it's like a free-for-all here. And the owner should at least come down here and see if he can secure his business, if he wants to." April 26, 1992. There was a riot on the streets. Tell me, where were you? You were sitting home watching your TV while I was participating in some anarchy. First spot we hit was my liquor store. I finally got all the alcohol I can afford. With red lights flashing, time to retire, and then we turned that liquor store into a structure fire. Next stop we hit was the music shop. It only took one brick to make that window drop. Finally, we got our own PA. Where do you think I got this guitar that you're hearing today? Hey, call fire and tell them to respond to the mobile station, Alamitos in Anaheim. It's flaming up good. 10-4, Alamitos in East Anaheim. Homicide, never doing no time. When we returned to the pad to unload everything, it dawned on me that I need new home furnishings. So once again, we filled the van until it was full. Since that day, my living room's been much more comfortable, because everybody in the hood has had it up to here. It's getting harder and harder and harder each and every year. Some kids went into a store with their mother. I saw her when she came out. She was getting some Pampers. They said it was for the black men. They said it was for the Mexican and not for the white man. But if you look at the street, it wasn't about Rodney King. It's this fucked up situation and these fucked up police. It's about coming up and staying on top and screaming 187 on a motherfucking cop. It's not in the paper. It's on the wall. National Guard, smoke from all around. Units, be advised. There's an attempt 211 to arrest. Now at 938 Temple, 938 Temple. Thirsty subjects with bats trying to get inside the CB's house. I think they're going. They're trying to kill him. As long as I'm alive, I'ma live illegal. Let it burn. Wanna let it burn. Wanna let it burn. Wanna let it burn. I feel insanity. Riots on the streets of Miami. Whoa, riots on the streets of Chicago. Oh, on the streets of Long Beach. Oh, in San Francisco, Boise, Idaho. Riots on the streets of Kansas City, Salt Lake, Huntington Beach, California. Oh, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Arcata, Compton, Michigan. Cleveland, Ohio, Abilene, Texas, Fountain Valley, Pensacola, Barstow, Paramount, Victorville, Eugene, Oregon. Let's do this every year, twice a year. Eureka, California. Let it burn, let it burn. Hesperia. Won't you let it burn? Won't you let it burn? Santa Barbara, Winnemucca, Nevada, Phoenix, Arizona, San Diego, Lakeland, Florida. Won't you let it burn? Fucking 29 Palms. Any units assist to Frank, 34, Willow, and Caspian. Structure fire and numerous subjects looting, 1015 to get rid of this looter. So, the song title refers to the date of the beginning of the 1992 Los Angeles riots, as you were quick to note, of which news spread throughout the United States following the acquittal of 4 police officers accused in the videotaped beating of Rodney King. The official title of the song references the date April 29th, 1992. However, the lyric sung is April 26, 1992. It has been said that this was a mistake, but that the take was strong enough that the band kept it. I think,
considering the situation you described with the recording.
pardon my gallows humor, but this is clearly a guy fucked up out of his mind that screwed up the lyric on one of the takes, and it probably sounded, to be fair, April 29th, 1992 is riddled with nines. So it's probably easier and sounds better off the tongue to go with 26. But at the same time, if it's about an historical event, show some reverence to the date of when it actually occurred. I mean, just someone give him a bit of this, a cup of black coffee, and tell him to get the fucking date right. But either way, it's in the lore of Sublime and Bradley Knoll that he fucked up this date and it made it to press. So theories have developed about the true integrity of the song.
Andy,
go ahead.
It's not like he called Greenland Iceland or anything, is it? So, give the guy a break.
Exactly. It's also not as if he was president of the fucking, United States of America either. So here we are. So yeah, theories have developed about the true integrity of the song's lyrics. The acts of crime, including arson, robbery, and vandalism referenced in the lyrics were purportedly committed by Bradley Knoll and the other Sublime band members during the 1992 LA riots. There's no evidence to suggest that any of that occurred, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think I said in my reaction, this is a song, it's not a documentary.
Exactly.
It doesn't really matter whether he was really there or not. He's telling a story.
He is absolutely.
It's not a confession either. And I don't know what the statute of limitations are, but the guy's dead, so calm down.
It would have been hard for us
put him
to
in
follow
chains.
up on this. You know what I mean? In an article written by the admin over at Violence Mixtape, they posited the following about this track and sort of its greater meaning. The song doesn't simply criticize the police brutality inflicted on Rodney King, but also addresses the inequality of black people as a systematic problem. The song describes the band members taking part in the Los Angeles riots of April 29th, 1992. The band points out that the rioting people would not only steal liquor and TV gear and the like, but also essential needs such as Pampers. Although the band does acknowledge the frustration of poor black people with lyrics such as, because everybody in the hood has had it up to here. It's getting harder and harder and harder each and every year. They also stress that this problem is far more broad and systematic. But if you look at the street, it wasn't about Rodney King and this fucked up situation and these fucked up police. It's about coming up and staying on top. The real issue was about was not about this isolated incident of Rodney King, but rather police brutality in general and the growing gap between the rich and the poor. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, from an outsider's point of view, a foreigner's point of view, it's not the fact that this guy got pulled over and got the shit kicked out of him. That would happen on a daily basis. Not to the same guy, obviously, because he'd be dead. But it happens to people all the time. It's the fact that someone videoed it. It went to court, and they still had the fucking brass neck to go, "Yep, not guilty."
Yeah.
And it's there in your eyes. It's a mother three turning her wheel and driving away and being shot in the face, and you still have the bollocks to say no, domestic terrorist.
Don't believe your
That's
lying
what
eyes. All right.
that's what people would write about. It's just that is a huge wave of injustice, and you can only push people so far before they break.
Yeah.
And if that's going on a daily basis, and if they didn't have the trial, if they just, if they'd never even charged those cops and hushed it all up, I reckon there wouldn't have been any riots because people would accept, yeah, that's how it goes. But the fact they had a trial and then still, you can't even believe, jury of your peers just said, yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's
it's the fact that you
fucking mental.
For a moment, just a moment, flirted with the idea of justice actually being brought into the picture by creating this, the court case, and then for it all to be the same end result that it would be if they had just swept it under the rug out of the gate, like you had just suggested. That is, I'm sure, is what pushed them over the edge. And look, this stuff is still happening now. You know what I mean? On this very day, someone died in Minnesota, the second individual to die in Minnesota at the hands of what is supposed to be law enforcement representative of our government. So I don't want to get too much on a soapbox here. It's kind of unavoidable, though. So these are lessons that we refuse to learn.
Questions. So it's just one thing. I don't know if you're aware of this, but within they talk about calling a 187 on the police, etc. So NWA famously fuck the police.
Yeah.
The knee-jerk reaction in this country is when the album came out, it was shipped across from the States. It landed at one of the airports and then was moved to a warehouse in Essex. Every copy of NWA's album, they were promptly impounded by the police. And they tried to work out which law they could use to suppress this album. This is in this country.
Yeah.
Unfucking believable. Just to, talk about, clutching your pearls. It was just hilarious. And of course, it made a huge success in this country by doing that. Idiots. And of course, the other thing was my only time that I saw NWA was Reading Festival. And they had their replica guns confiscated as they came in. So they had the S1W had to come on stage with these like wooden rifles that were, almost two-dimensional. They were flat, like cut out shapes of rifles.
It's like
it looked hilarious. It was really bad. But again, that seared that performance in my mind forever because of that. But the one thing I wanted to ask is, you said in the intro, in parenthesis, Miami. What's that got to do with this?
I just think it's the way he calls it out in the song. It's one of the first cities that he lists when he's underscoring the fact that it's spread like, well, you want to talk about something very Californian, wildfires. It spread like wildfire. The riots there in a very similar fashion. God damn, I'm bringing up Minnesota again, but not sadly not in the instance that I just did. But rewind a few years ago, the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police officers. And again,
was it 2020?
Yeah, that spread across the country, and there were demonstrations throughout all sorts of major US cities in the wake of that. So it was a similar situation, in 1992, following the acquittal of these four assholes for their beating of Rodney King. It spread very similarly. So yeah, we are seemingly doomed to repeat ourselves for whatever reason. And that's sad in and of itself. But I just thought, you wanted to hear some more Sublime, and we will continue to check out more Sublime from here on out. But this seemed, this is one of my favorite tracks on the album. I think this and Doing Time are pretty much like, neck and neck. But it seemed as apropos as ever to bring this one in the wake of having Doing Time and what's going on in the fucking world right now, or at least my neck of the woods over here. So yeah, I wanted to bring it to you, have you check it out. I know that to some out there in the listening audience, it might seem odd that John and I, who seem hyper fixated on guitar or rock based music, we're also fans of hip hop and rap, and it's kind of undeniable to see that obviously this isn't rap, but to clearly see that the rap du jour from the West Coast was finding its way into these guys' sound without sounding as awfully appropriated or as out of place as we've heard in other examples of white bands trying to incorporate that sound, which I think is why Sublime also stands on a firmer foundation than maybe some of its peers who attempted to do similar things with cross-pollinating music styles and genres and stuff like that. So I'm really glad you liked it. That you like this tune a lot. Just out of my own weird curiosity, where does it fall with Doing Time? Is it like right there with it? Do you like Doing Time a lot more than this? Do you like this a lot more than Doing Time?
I think I like Doing Time more, but I've listened to it more.
Yeah. Fair. Well, maybe when you give this, I'd just be interested to hear what you have
But
to
this
say.
is just right, as I said, really evocative. So,
It is.
it's all this stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, John. So thank you so much for giving this a listen. I really appreciate your time and your honest take on it. Some interesting stuff. It's really cool that songs like this can conjure not just conversations about music or instrumentation, but larger things as a whole. I think that's one of the beautiful things about art. So yeah, it does that. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track. If there's other stuff by Sublime or any other artists that you'd like us to check out, feel free to drop any of those recommendations or other thoughts down in the comments field below. I will link Doing Time in the description field of this track in case you want to go off and learn more about them in the event that you didn't check out that episode. And please, while we have your attention, and if you're still here, think about liking, sharing, and or subscribing. Just takes a couple moments out of your time, but it means the world to us. So thank you so much for that. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. See you later, guys.